So that's that. Get your hello YouTubes in now. This is where we'll start actually reacting. First off, it has been very, very cool that I've been hit with a bunch of messages over the past couple of days. Weirdly, before the videos had even dropped and before the announcement had dropped, people were already messaging me going, I think there's going to be something for you at Jeff Fest. And I was like, cool. So I really do appreciate people reaching out about that. And then once it had dropped as well, lots of people asking for my opinion on this stuff. Lots of people asking us to post something like this as well, which has been very cool. So that's one of the really cool things. So thank you very much for doing all that. The other cool thing has been loads of people on Twitter and on Reddit and stuff are breaking these trailers down really deeply. And I mean, like, translating the Chinese stuff on the walls, looking at the martial arts, looking at the tattoos. I've always liked to think that what I'm doing brings something that isn't already being put out there. And that's always nice. That said, I'm over the moon to see that all of that stuff's already going out and other people are doing it. A, I don't have time to, and B, it means that there is like a lot of genuine excitement about this game that is deeper than just talking about the tier lists and the fighting game mechanics and things like that. There is people genuinely excited about the minutiae of this game, and I think that's very, very cool. A 2.5, a slight addition to that is that even like Tekken and Street Fighter players and everyone else have been looking at the Virtua Fighter stuff and just letting the Virtua Fighter people have a good time, which is nice. 99.99% of people have been looking at the Virtua Fighter stuff and just going, oh yeah, this is cool, good for the Virtua Fighter people, even possibly good for me because it looks different enough from normal Virtua Fighter that I'll probably give it a go. We're going to take a look at the Virtua Fighter Crossroads showcase. For anyone that is watching this on YouTube, hello, I'm Wireman. I am known for looking too deeply into this kind of stuff, whether that's breaking down the martial arts aspects of it, the cultural aspects of it, sometimes the fighting game technical aspects of it as well, depending on how confident I'm feeling. So you'll see me on lots of tutorial videos and other opinion pieces and things on my channel and a bunch of other channels. I'll be dropping a bunch of stuff in the description below. Like I say, it's been so cool to see other people already reacting and theorizing around these videos. So I will be referencing a lot of big players in the Virtua Fighter scene and referencing them in the link below as well. There's loads of them. They've been around for 20 years. Me talking about stuff that I've observed and that I've observed them observe is not the biggest part of it. The biggest part of it is definitely them and everything that they've done. So yeah, you'll see loads of links to that. I'll be shouting out people in the chat and stuff throughout as well. But yeah, lots of people have already been theorizing and looking into this stuff. Who had 10 seconds as a bet for the first pause as well. Who knows what these shoes are? That is pair of Puma Clydes. Ignore the cat hair. This is of cultural FGC importance, the Puma Clyde. Well known as a basketball shoe, as it says there, inspired by basketball legend Walt Frazier. Known in the FGC for a different reason. So the Puma Clyde, there's kind of two versions of Yin and Yang. Because the shoe in Third Strike wasn't exactly really clear as to what they were wearing. But some of the artwork uses more of like a Vans classic style shoe with the wave. But then other pictures, this one very, very famously uses the Puma Clyde. As you can see, I own a pair. They're very uncomfortable. They are extremely narrow shoes. So I do think for martial arts, they would not be a great choice. But yeah, also Jamie in Street Fighter 6 obviously has gone down a similar road with like a variation of the Jordan essentially. But you can still kind of see that there is a bit of a nod to the Puma Clyde in those as well. Crossroads opening up here with a nod to a fighting game pair of shoes. Side note, I believe they are still on the divestment banned list. So as much as I've got a pair, I believe Puma's supported by Israel or the other way around, and we steer clear of the Puma brand at the moment. Puma operates a 100% owned subsidiary in Israel since 2013 with flagship stores at Tel Aviv Port. The company sponsored the Israel Football Association from 2018 to 2024, which includes teams in illegal Israeli settlements and partners with the Maccabi Tel Aviv FC through Factory 54. Do we just talk about it straight away? We'll talk about two things, right? And like I say, I'm going to start shouting out different people in the Virtua Fighter community. So the first thing after the shoes that we see in here, which was Injiji from the Virtua Fighter scene. They pointed out first, the Crow has returned a couple of times in the trailers. Obviously, the Morning Has Broken trailer, the famous Akira Yuki trailer, was the first one. The Crow Tadoru, Blackbird, is what they've said. The meaning behind that bird showing up was a total mystery, but it was hinting at the protagonist Cielo's debut, is their thought on that. And the other thing, have I got a quote of this? I think I've got a quote of this. Ryo Shibasaki, who said, we defined, about Cielo, we defined his origins, his likes and dislikes, and the details of his upbringing. We thought carefully about the environment he grew up in, and how much of this to feature in the game. We discussed this in much detail as a team, and how best to portray this in his design. Take Cielo's outfit and tattoos, for example, who he should be reflected in these two. So that's interesting with the tattoo. I also think, and it might be something that's better described and revealed in the gameplay itself, but the way that he's wearing hand wraps there, hand wraps serve two purposes. There's lots of different ways you can wrap your hands, and again, I will go back to the hand wraps in future, because there are some things here that are clearly deliberate. The thing with hand wraps is they're customizable. They're there to protect your hands.
Now.
Hello, future Wireman here. At this part in the stream, I started to talk very confidently and at length about how Cielo hadn't wrapped his hands properly. Off stream, I've taken a look into it, and in some professional circuits and some of the more heavily promoted circuits of bare knuckle boxing, they do actually wrap their hands this way, with just on the wrist and thumbs and nothing on the top knuckles. So Sega probably knew what they were doing here, and I'm just making myself look very, very silly. However, in more traditional and underground bare knuckle boxing and things like that, you will still see proper hand wrap techniques like the ones that I'm showing here, with the knuckles covered as well. Whether that's in the travelling community, whether that's in Peru at the Takanakwe festivals, Dambe fighting in Africa, or Muay Boran in Thailand. But yeah, in the more official professional outlets like BKFC and some of the greyer ones that are promoted and governed but not necessarily as officially, like Spartan, you will see a setup like Cielo's. So make of that what you will. Maybe he is a professional. I'm sure we'll find out when the game comes out. Allows you to still catch someone's hand, catch a leg and things like that. But we also have a good amount of cushioning over the knuckles, a good amount of security in that it's wrapping between each of the fingers on my hand. But that's normally what you're using it for, right? Two main purposes, to protect the knuckles and to protect the wrists. What we've got here, if we jump back, now do you see the problem one? Not wrapped around his fingers, no protection on the knuckles, and you can clearly bend his wrists. So it's not doing the job. It's interesting that the art director has said we've put a lot of care into how these characters look and how they dress, which means they've chosen this. It does have a lot of wrapping around the thumb, which, like I say, does imply possibly a boxing background. Very odd to have bare knuckles on a hand wrap. Could be bandages and something from a scene that we've not seen. But yeah, I just thought it was very interesting to start this off. And again, Virtua Fighter very big on very accurate looking at martial arts, looking at martial artists. Interesting that the knuckles are open. Might be something I don't know there. For whatever reason it's there. We'll hopefully see why in the story mode, right? But yeah, he is clearly going to be a very main character. He's also using wired headphones. We can jump to another reference here. But I think we've got a big shout out here for Akai, wherever I can find Akai's tweet. But a few people have listed what all of the different October 30ths are and what years they fall on. So yeah, the years that Akai had posted are 1993, 1999, 2004, 2010, 2021, and 2027 are all years where October the 30th falls on a Saturday. And yes, I was about to drop the link to Villa Fight Fest there as well, which is interesting, isn't it? That is a website that does the introduction to what Villa Fight Fest is. So they've created like an artificial site there. President Diego Bato backs Villa Fight Fest. Some call it Bloodsport, I call it Heritage, which is again kind of leans towards what we've talked about with Vale Tudo as well. We'll get more into the Vale Tudo stuff in a second. But yeah, it was interesting that this was linked and that they've created this sort of fake website inviting people to Fight Fest. If you don't know, in the Virtua Fighter games, Virtua Fighter 1 through to Virtua Fighter 5, pretty much all of them start with an invite to a fighting game tournament. And for most people, it's a mysterious invite that they receive. And originally it's ran by people who are unknown. Later it's ran by people who are either clearly in Judgment 6 or very easily suspected to be in Judgment 6. This is the first time we've seen someone put their first name on an invite in a Virtua Fighter tournament, which are usually called the World Fighting Tournaments as well. We'll get to that again in a little bit. But yeah, clearly the president here is very proud of the idea of having a fighting tournament. And then a purchase ticket's not available yet, which implies a link, but you can't actually click on it. And then at the bottom it is copyright Sega, copyright Villa Fight Fest Organising Committee, which is almost too real, right? That suggests that maybe there is going to be an actual real tournament called this in the real world that's related to this stuff. And the crest here for the Republic of Macaria, which is, again, we'll get to in the video, is a fictitious place, a place where most of this stuff is set, and what we're looking at here in this video too. Likely that October 30th, falling on a Saturday, is this 2027 one that Akai pointed out. Could be an earlier date, 2021, 2010, 2004, 1999 or 1993. The wired headphones could imply any. If you had a pair of Raycons on, we'd be able to narrow that date down a lot more. You know? Again, clearly like a boxing style belt where you would obviously usually have like your cushion and things, and then what looks like Muay Thai style text on the front of a pair of long tracksuit bottoms that then have flames on the bottom. We'll talk more about the full outfit later on, but yeah, a lot of different things going on there that imply a lot of martial arts going in a lot of different directions. Red vest and sort of capri length blue pants, or blue pants that have like some detail at the bottom of them, is already a character in Virtua Fighter. This is a very similar colorway to Leon. Even in Virtua Fighter 4, you can see they kept that going. So, you know, someone out there is aware. But no, I thought that was a strange choice. Street Fighter 4 style, if you beat someone, you get their colorway. So maybe the law here is that our new character has beaten Leon. And then we get our first look at Stella, looking less like Sarah, I think.
Otherwise, we wouldn't be living in Villa Sapara.
Very British accent there from Mr. We're All Fuck-Ups.
Just woke up in a fucking steaming mood, yeah? Because I live in a shithole! Do you know what I mean?
Villa Sapara.
It's a fucking shithole! I hate the fucking place! I fucking hate it! It's full of dickheads! I fucking hate it!
And this chap up here, who you can see the face of, and I think that's important as well. We'll get to that later. This whole scene, this is the opening scene to Sleeping Dogs, and I cannot be convinced otherwise. The raining, the jumping over market stuff, like, that is what that is. But Brian, aka Sadon, has been posting loads of theories of loads of things. They theorized that Crocodile Shoe with these trousers might be Go Hinagami. Shout outs to him as well, though. Yeah, he's posted loads of theories. He's poured over the details in this video. He also thinks Akira's in the restaurant eating food before Pai walks in and stuff as well. Brian's gone really off on a few like hard reads, I think, so that in a year's time they can go, I told you. But he's thrown so many things at the wall that like there's a good chance that something he said is going to happen. But yeah, he reckons this could be Go. I think this could be the person that we saw up in the chair before, who at best looked like an unmasked Kage, but I think that's also not the case. All of this running away, of course, very, very closely tied to Shenmue origins, and of course through Shenmue origins into your usual Kenji origins as well. Of that looks a little bit like running away, the escape scenes that happen in Kowloon. This shot, I think, might be an homage to a Hong Kong shot in Kenji as well. But the big part of this, and again, we mentioned it a little bit in the Shenmue video as well, is the ties between Kung Fu and Chinese restaurants. Lao Chan is a chef. He originally entered the fighting tournaments to raise money for his restaurant more than anything. And there's a lot of people who think that this sign and some of the writing on this sign alludes to Lao's hometown, and that this is likely a Lao restaurant, or obviously we're about to see Pai, that Pai might have picked up Lao's kitchen running heritage there as well. That feels very Dead or Alive 5 specifically, doesn't it, to have an interactive electric wall. Might just be for the single player bits. I don't think electric wall splashes would go down well among the Virtua Fighter fans. Would go down well among the Fighting Vipers fans, I think. And there has been allusions to this being possibly a little bit more Fighting Vipers-y as well, which we'll see in the near future. But yeah, someone did point this out, that usually a 3D fighter goes after other 3D fighters. So normally a 3D fighter like Tekken or Virtua Fighter or Dead or Alive, they homage each other and they try to one-up each other. This is kind of big, right, for a 3D fighting game, which are generally a little less popular, I would say, than the 2D fighters. To be going for the king, basically, to be going for Street Fighter 6 and going, yeah, we can do that too.
I don't just want everything you have. I want you not to have it.
The big thing here, of course, is that we do have RGG, we have the Dragon Engine, we have the Yakuza heritage, and if you've seen my video on Archives at Midnight, we talk in that quite a bit about the Yakuza origins of this current Virtua Fighter team. It's not just as straightforward as the Virtua Fighter game and franchise has been taken on by a studio that have been making Yakuza. Like, a lot of this team have worked in the past on other Yakuza games, have worked in the past on other AM2 games. There are people in here that have worked on Daytona USA, there are people in here that have worked on previous Virtua Fighters. The past two producers combined, I believe, have worked on every numbered Virtua Fighter put together. So there is a lot of Virtua Fighter heritage and a lot of Yakuza heritage that have gone into Virtua Fighter 6. I do see a bit more of a lean towards Yakuza than I was expecting. I think most Virtua Fighter fans would say that. But I'm also not too gutted about that. I think it is going to be very, very cool to see more of a single player experience here. And again, people are referencing Shenmue and things like that in a good way. This could be another Shenmue, but like meaning like Shenmue 1 or 2, you know. Definitely check out AAMGLOBAL. I've posted a few things on there, and in general, AAMGLOBAL looks at the design and cultural influences of different fighting games. They do quite a lot on Tekken and Virtual Fighter. So yeah, definitely check them out. Chinese cartels and axes is a thing. If you've ever watched any movie about a particular era in Shanghai, axe gangs were quite well known. So it's interesting to see that being brought into this. If you haven't seen Narco Saints, Narco Saints is about a Korean mafia taking on a Chinese mafia in South America, basically. Based on a true story. But it's definitely got this vibe as well, which I thought was interesting. I think they have paid attention to some of this. Because the style of like how people are dressing and how the restaurants look and things like that, it's all very, very close. Main guy's a judoka in it, and his judo knowledge gets him out of trouble. There's the axe. So a lot of parallels to that as well. Here she is. Pai-chan, off of every Virtua Fighter game ever, has never missed one, always turns up to work. Daughter of Lao-chan. Mostly fights in a style known as Mizongi. Mizongi is one of the first mixed martial arts in history. Would that be a fair description? I think it would. The originator, Huo Yuanjia, he's kind of a real life legend. Fearless with Jet Li is based off of Huo Yuanjia. He invented Mizongi. Mizongi is a mixed martial art in that he took all of the things that he thought worked from certain martial arts and then threw away the things that didn't. Mizongi ends up being a mixture of Bagua and a few other things. And then in popular media, in Virtua Fighter fighting game franchise, this is the fighting style of main characters Pai-chan and her father Lao-chan. Not correct. Lao does not do Mizongi. So there we go. Northern Shaolin, Long Fist, internal styles of Tai Chi and Bagua. Tai Chi and Bagua is very accurate. And yeah, Long Fist, Long fist is quite an easy coverall term, but yeah, they're very obvious. They're usually the styles that are adopted in old-fashioned martial arts films because they're quite flashy and showy. And you often have like fighting at a distance and things like that, whereas Mizongi actually is a lot about fighting very close up. But yeah, here he is. There's Huo Yuanjia in the white dress and stuff like that. But yeah, so this show is also called Heroes, and this covers lots of legends from Chinese martial arts, including Huo Yuanjia. And this guy as well, Great Sword, what's he called? Great Sword Wu. These palms are a Bagua style palm. I think you do also see them in Tai Chi a little bit as well. It looks like she's pushing away. She's actually pushed sideways and like slammed, if that makes sense. Again, that nice long bow stance that you can see hiding in the bottom there while she makes this guy throw up. But then into a sweep that she's very well known for doing in general, right? You would normally hear the fighter jet noise. That's your down K plus G type moves that Lao and Pai do. Usually when you see that hook hand, like that is something that you do in your Taolu, in your like practice katas, to represent when you'd be grabbing a leg or something like that. So it's interesting that she's chosen to do that. I think she's doing it here. If you look at the other hand coming over the top as well, with the position of that hand, she's forming a yin-yang, which is quite common as a flex in some of these things. We all talk about the Baji stance in Mortal Kombat and things like that.
Madam Sue? You play the part of a fighter, but you are lacking in Kung Fu.
Your Kung Fu is lacking is like used everywhere, right? Like that's in too many movies and TV shows to reference.
You are lacking in Kung Fu.
We've mentioned before, haven't we? Kung Fu has a bunch of different meanings. It doesn't mean martial arts, which a lot of people think. Wushu means martial arts. But Kung Fu, usually the symbols used for the words Kung Fu are the words associated with like time and effort. So it means sort of putting in a lot of heavy practice. So saying lacking in Kung Fu, it kind of means lacking a sort of structured model that you've repeated over time to get better at something, I would say, more than anything. So yeah, you can have Kung Fu in playing the violin, you can have Kung Fu in painting with oil paints. Like there's a lot of things that can have Kung Fu, but obviously it's been related mostly to Kung Fu Wushu. But yeah, interesting that she says it. Obviously it does mean you need to practice, basically. You're 10 years too early. Good to see her. And as someone else pointed out, I believe it was Myke, no Virtua Fighter conversation exists without Myke at this point. I think Myke held a huge chunk of the community up for 20 years by hosting virtuafighter.com VFDC. Myke pointed out that the artwork's been really good for Elder Pi, and referenced an old piece of artwork from an Arcadia magazine, where it's almost like Pi is always intended to look this way. But the more important thing here is the big deal, I think, has been for a lot of fighting game fans to see an older female character in a fighting game. They do exist, there are a couple, but yeah, it's been a big deal to a lot of people, I think, to see that they've aged up Pi. They haven't cloned Pi so that she always stays young, which is a common fighting game way of doing things, or just refused to age them and not explained it and things like that. Again, RGG have done this for a long time now, right? It's always been super cool in Yakuza games. Even as far back as like the original Yakuza games, they've always featured older characters and people in their 30s and 40s, as much as older might be relative. But yeah, they've had no problem doing things like that. So it was not a surprise to an RGG fan, but it was a surprise to a fighting game fan, I think, to see that. We've all seen this now. When the leak came out, people missed this for some reason. But yeah, the VI, meaning 6. So it might be called Virtua Fighter Crossroads, and the VI always just remains a little secret.
That's Pai Chan.
Who's Pai Chan?
What?
So he's known as Jasper. Yeah, and there is a family tree as well. Like I say, I'll throw that up Injiji again. So Jasper is listed on there as best friend of Cielo. He knows who Pai-chan is. If this was a real world fighting tournament and things like that, there's a good chance you wouldn't know who a fighting person from 10, 20 years ago is. He does. And you might notice that he's wearing a t-shirt that says the World Fighting Tournament on it. So clearly a vintage t-shirt from one of the earlier Virtua Fighters, which is why he knows who Pai-chan is. We're an hour in, and we are 2 minutes into the video. This is what you get with me though, right? That's the original Cielo promo in the background with that first bit. Again, feels very Yakuza for them to be taking these interviews dressed up as cool as they are in nightclubs. He keeps saying that. Atarashi Virtua Fighter just means new Virtua Fighter, but I think there is going to be quite a departure from the old Virtua Fighter games. And I think they're doing their best in the language that they use here to make sure that existing fans know that they're not just getting Virtua 5 Omega. There is again. I do think we're going to see big changes, not just the addition of single player. I think we are going to see like core differences to the fighting game mechanics, possibly the controls, which might freak out some older Virtua Fighter fans. These parts of them as well. Yeah, creating a new Virtua Fighter. So again, these people aren't trying to carry on the original story in a few ways. Two things, right? Firstly, pick the first reference here. Was that not the most Ryo Hazuki drinking of a can you've seen? A lot of video games have done this at this point, but when it comes from a Virtua Fighter source, we appreciate it more. Maybe I should get another. Exactly. This line here, I think it's going to give people a whole new kind of experience that they've never had from a game before. My theory, it's not something that hasn't been done before, ever, I think. I think it's been done in Rent a Hero, which isn't a great example, but again, does have the right origins of Yu Suzuki and early Sega experimentation. I think what they mean here when they say a whole new kind of experience that they've never had from a game before is essentially a Yakuza game that has real fighting in the fight scenes. So yeah, in the same way that Sword of Vermilion and Rent a Hero would take you from an RPG and then drop you into an actual fighting game, I think that's what's going to happen here. Best case scenario, I think a lot of people would love to see that kind of thing. And RGG arguably has a single engine that demonstrably handles both, right? I mean, Unreal can handle both if you really want it to, but this is something that has been built and tuned for them. But yeah, I think it's that same concept though of Rent a Hero, where you play an RPG and then it breaks into a 2D scroll and beat 'em up or a 2D fighting game, if you can call it that. I think that this is going for a similar kind of paradigm shift, which we used to see in Mega Drive games quite a lot, and then obviously later in the Dreamcast. And a little bit in PlayStation 2's Virtua Quest, which I do also think this is going to be a little bit like. We'll get to that as well. Complete fusion of Virtua Fighter's combat system and action-adventure gameplay, right? So similar to what I've just said there. This again, I think has a little bit of Sleeping Dogsness to it, where you're smashing people into vending machines and things like that. I don't know how much of Triad Wars you've seen. Here's some YouTuber demoing Triad Wars on its last ever day. When was this? 10 years ago? June in. But yeah, you'll see here some of those interactions where I've smashed people's heads into walls and things like that. And it's an RPG that has put some thought into its combat. Like, this was quite a small team. There wasn't a lot of people working on this, but they did work with the people that were playing the game at the time to make sure that the fighting game side of it worked quite well, that there wasn't infinites and things like that. So you can see, again, more paradigm shift, and we're going from a fighting game to a shooter to a racing game. Had bits of everything. Yeah, super sick game though. Felt very John Woo, as you can probably tell. This was Injiji as well. Injiji's just absolutely killed it. Someone translated all of the signs that are in Chinese in the background. Most of the scrolls and things like that are quite typical sort of talismans and good luck things that you would put in a place of business that just wish you good luck and fortune from all around the world and things like that. Got a little Ogoshi throw here, hip to hip. And again, that means Cielo is going to be our Kiryu, our Ichiban. Does have a little bit of Jamie to his style as well, doesn't he? But yeah, this scene here, everyone's been extremely excited about. So you got 4 big things that happen here. So let's go by them step by step. So again, you've got Pi with another sort of yin-yang arms kind of stance there. Into a sort of hopping K plus G. That was something that she used to do quite a lot in her sort of win poses and things like that. Wolf's clothesline, another very well-known move. Jackie's like question mark kick. Surprised that they chose that for Jackie. I think Jackie's, if you asked what Jackie's like big moves are, I think people are gonna say flash sword kick, and they're gonna say somersault kick above anything else. But it's still quite a very Jackie looking move. And then the Akira Yuki Chenjang open palm you can see there at the end. Pretty good posture, I would say. So that gives me a bit of reassurance. Just obviously as the badgy person, seeing how symmetrical he is there, where his elbows and knees and hands are. It looks like they're still paying close attention to how a martial arts person does things textbook correctly. If you actually look at that move in the game, he is a lot lower down and things like that. But if you were to watch a martial artist do that move in a form, it would look like that. So I do think they're still reading the texts, poring over the scrolls, etc., while they're doing this stuff. Boxing technique here. This is a whole thing. So in terms of boxing form, a lot of good things here. His right shoulder is forward with his left knee forward. So he's doing that kind of properly. He's clearly pushing from his back leg, and there's a kinetic chain, right, going from the back leg right through to the knuckle. He has a fist glued to his face. This is something that shows experience. People always drop this. Even quite experienced people can drop this or not remember to have this up. Standard. And then the other thing, if I move off screen, is to jab and twist your knuckle down. People say thumbs down, so you kind of point a thumb down when you're throwing long straights and things like that. People say that, and technically it's the most correct way to do it. It untwists the bones in your arm to give you slightly better reach, and again slightly better kinetic chain, because it's pushing into bones all the way down, which is stronger, so you can sort of push while you punch. The reality is nobody does a proper thumbs down in real life, as much as your coach is always going to tell you to do it, and you'll practice it that way on the bag. When you're actually sparring with people and actually fighting people, you don't do a full thumbs down. It's just not there. You're not thinking about that kind of stuff that much. But yeah, so people might point that out. There might be some people who take boxing classes and things who go, oh well, he's not twisting enough or whatever. But realistically, that is what people do. It's more impressive and realistic that he's got his hand over his chin there, I would say. And again, one shoulder back, one shoulder forward, and you know, there's a lot of good biomechanics there. But yeah, really cool. Like, I've heard people have got quite emotional over that scene, like it's handing over the torch. It's very emotionally and thoughtfully done, and I think it's doing it for a couple of reasons, right? I think it's a handing over the torch moment, right? Every fighting game tries and fails to do that, I would say. It's very difficult to go, your old characters aren't coming back. Like, Street Fighter 3 is famous, right? Third Strike exists because Street Fighter 3 did not do a good job of that. So I think it is trying to go, we're bringing you some new characters now. It's got the same name, but it's not the same thing. And it's showing respect to these characters. I do think, and this is where it aligns to Virtua Quest again, I do think that these characters are going to be quite like godlike. The Virtua Souls that we saw in Virtua Quest, I think that we are going to see these characters being like seen as extremely high up in the echelons, and if they appear in these tournaments and things like that, even though they're older, it is going to be like, oh, this is a big deal that they're here. And that also makes me think we're not going to see a lot of characters from the original game. So there's 4 there. There's Stella, that's kind of like half and half, right? This person looks like someone that you know. And we've talked about it a little bit before. Cielo very much has taken enough from Vanessa that there's probably not going to be a Vanessa. Not only ties nicely to Lao, but again ties nicely to a lot of the Kung Fu origins in general. There's a great documentary on Kung Fu in New York City. Let me see if I can find that. But yeah, I hear stories of this through my teachers, and they still kind of do it to the people that are nearby them as well. But yeah, you would go to the restaurant either before or after. Before, if it was the place where it was happening, because again, restaurants are usually a place that have a lot of space and all of the rest of it, and usually owned by someone that can afford that kind of thing, have the time, have the amenities. And then also quite often go afterwards, because your teacher's giving you a hard time and then they give you a slightly gentler time by bringing you in, telling you stories and that kind of thing. In China especially, there is a connotation to that. So there is a saying that is, the Yangtze River is wide and the capital is far away. So in South China in particular, although Paichan and Laochan are definitely from northern China and very close to the government capital at the time, a lot of that sort of tea drinking and things like that was a celebration that the government was far away from where you were, and you were able to take your time and think about things and talk about stuff and practice stuff that you weren't necessarily allowed to talk about and weren't necessarily allowed to practice. Martial arts has often been one of those things, right? So again, that is why you see these things in these spaces. GSP's Superman Punch. Again, he's clearly got a lot of MMA origins to him. I think this might be the alligator boot and pants person from before. I think we can assume with the look on their face and all the rest of it, right? It's probably Judgment 6 tied bad guy, right? I think that's where we're going with this. People have said this could be Leon Rafale or Lion Rafale, however you want to pronounce that. I think he's too young. I don't think that's the case. Young couldn't fight old. He doesn't make it a habit of fighting the elderly, right? So he's out of the picture now, absolutely. Worth mentioning, this guy's going to appear in a little bit as well. But yeah, the green and gold is very Landy Lao Chan, right? Like these colours have always been associated with this person's about to do something horrible that's going to change the course of a character's life. This moment here feels very Landy walking into the dojo, right? I say they're carrying axes, which is a big, not necessarily a triad thing, but a big Gans thing. With the violin and everything. It's very, or else your son, right? Just wanted to say that it's got that vibe. It's also got a little bit of a vibe of Bloodhounds, if you've ever seen the K-drama Bloodhounds, where they go in and smash up the shop there. Like, you cause a problem, the problem comes home kind of thing. Just wants it to be different to Like a Dragon, so it's not going to be turn-based. We know that much. Grounding the fighting in realism. Again, that feels like a secret sauce to Virtua Fighter that shouldn't be touched. I don't think it's too controversial to say that. Something that's an approximation of reality. Not necessarily the things that all the other fighting games do. If you want to throw fireballs, you want to have sparks and lightning and all the rest of it coming out of people's fists, the game's for that. Right? Firstly, these are being quite huge announcements, these people that are working on it. So David Hayter, from a world building perspective, big deal. That is Metal Gear Solid David Hayter, yeah, it is. Like, we've got some big caliber people here. Lead writer Brad Kane, Dusk Falls Ghost of Tsushima. Scenario director Tsuyoshi Furuta, from Like a Dragon, Judgment and Lost Judgment. Judgment and Lost Judgment, some of my favourite games. I really loved that as a spin-off. But yeah, these are huge names. Some of these are huge names that aren't from a Virtua Fighter or Yakuza pedigree. It is a little nerve-wracking, but they are big names from big places, right? So I think we can, if we trust them a bit, and they use some of the good foundations and the good raw materials that already exist in RGG and in Virtua Fighter, this could be something amazing, right? Scenario writer from the Persona games, right, which are entirely narrative driven, and Shin Megami Tensei. So in terms of scenarios, I mean, the scenarios in Persona and Shin Megami Tensei are extremely complicated and end up with Wikipedia pages. Sega finally using Atlas for good, right? So, like, this is good to see. But that does mean that we're going to have extremely full Wikipedia pages of Virtua Fighter lore, which has never happened. And a lot of the Virtua Fighter people are talking about this. It's like, I've talked about it before on these streams. Like, you used to get 10 seconds of lore maximum in a Virtua Fighter game, either buying the sequel to that Virtua Fighter game, where it would have a little bit of text explaining how the last one ended, or very rarely, if you finished arcade mode on the hardest difficulty setting without losing a single round, you would get a snippet of a cutscene that would explain a tiny bit of Virtua Fighter lore, and that was your reward, and that's as far as it ever really got. We've shown in Virtua Fighter Kids, there was several videos in that, but again, you had to finish the game with every single character to get these little bits of lore. It's never been easy to get Virtua Fighter lore, and now they're going, oh yeah, the Persona guys are just going to write everything. It's like, I don't think the Virtua Fighter scene is ready for that. But yeah, when you read a Virtua Fighter manual, it says, like Virtua Fighter 4 manual will say, the winner of Virtua Fighter 3 was blah blah blah, and they beat blah blah blah. And it does that all the way through. So we only know that Lau won the first Virtua Fighter tournament because the manual for Virtua Fighter 2 says it. You don't find out in the entire game. Speaking of dates, Dusty Crawlman, Shun D player, during Summer Jeff Fest. It was the 6th of June in Japan when this aired. Or J6. So obviously, potential, I mean, I don't think they completely booked Jeff Fest around that, but it's interesting that there's a J6 in the announcement date for a new Virtua Fighter game, right? It's worth mentioning there is one other person, which is Yohei Koike. He has won tournaments before. Rental Animator, he's known as in the Virtua Fighter world. Co-director of cinematics. So yeah, you've probably seen tournaments with Rental Animator in. So in terms of a caliber, could people already suspected? They were like, we think people who play Virtua Fighter have been making this game. People who have won Virtua Fighter tournaments have been making this game. So you don't get to say that all of the time. Sometimes Street Fighter has got to say that a little bit, but like, that's not a regularly occurring thing, right? So very, very cool to see that as well. I think everything that's happened, my theory, I think everything that's happened in the original Virtua Fighters has happened. We're now in a world where that's fallen by obscurity a little bit, right? If you asked people to name everyone that was in the original UFC tournament, you could probably, you know, I think a lot of fight fans could get one or two out, but you'd stop there. I think this is that kind of world where unless you're super into it, those people still exist and walk among us. And there's a tournament about to happen in this city, so there might be some people who are a bit more savvy here. But I think that's what they're going for. But to those people, I think those people are godlike. So I think, yeah, Akira Yuki and things, people would be amazed to see. But they're not like walking around as celebrities or anything. My guess. Oh, two things. Also, switch on subtitles when you get to this bit. They have included titles. Another theory I have, not everything here is subtitled, and I wonder if they've rushed this part of this out and this was going to be like an addendum that wasn't going to come out at the Jeffs. But yeah, if we switch on subtitles and set subtitles, you've also got to set them to auto-translate English. We'll get different subtitles to what are written under here. Not hugely, but like sometimes they really compress a sentence and there is some stuff. So, we have the exploding faces and exploding limbs. We talked a little bit about a few theories here, right? So there's the fighting vipers concept of like high and low. But yeah, there could be a fighting vipers thing here of sections, head, body, legs maybe. But fighting vipers was body and legs, where you can do consistent damage. There's other theories here that it might be that it's just a 1-2 setup, kind of more like the X-ray attacks in Mortal Kombat, where if you hit an area twice in a row, it does bonus damage to it. Least likely option that I really like is if we go back to the rare Virtua Fighter game, All Japan Pro Wrestling featuring Virtua, is that this is going to be that you can work a certain part of the body, and if you just choose to go for a leg, you can do significant damage on it throughout the entire fight. If you always focus on the same area. I don't know if they'll go for that. It does look like this is more of a 1-2 kind of setup thing, but I would like to think that they go a little deeper here than just straight up that Mortal Kombat style. It would be good to get into that mind game if you're always going for someone's leg, that as a Virtua Fighter player who's already experienced in Nitaku and things like that, you're going, right, the most powerful option is against my head at the moment. But they've been really working that leg, so do I go for the leg option instead? Maybe even with the little All Japan Pro, you would get like an X-ray. It wasn't like a Mortal Kombat X-ray. You would get an actual photograph of an X-ray next to them, which was quite fun. I think this body aiming system is what they refer to as the second way to win in the game. See, that's the thing, is if it was and you could work a limb, that's really authentic again to true MMA and things like that, right? Like, it happens, and it was described as, yeah, technical knockout by fear or by dread or something like that, and it was just this person is too afraid to get back up and do another round. Or similarly, we have actually just seen people work a leg so hard that the other person can't keep fighting. Was it Takeru? You'll see it quite often in Muay Thai and things where someone will just focus on a leg until someone can't get up anymore. Fear mechanic, right? But yeah, maybe if you work a leg hard enough, they can't stand, or at least they don't want to engage with you anymore. And yeah, it looks like they might not have the win condition of ring outs, or at least not everywhere. And if they have to find something else that's the equivalent of a ring out, and you need, because that's the cool thing in Virtua Fighter as well, right? Is you have multiple win conditions. You've got timer, life bar, and space. So like, it would be cool to see a new thing come in if they are going to take the space element out of it. Firstly, this is all Pi stuff. Some of the stuff that you see from Pi is a little tweaked, but a lot of this is original Pi, and it's been quite funny seeing people react to this stuff, going, this is the most realistic fighting I've seen in a game. This is so advanced, and it's like a lot of us have seen these animations. Some of these animations go as far back as, I would say, Virtua Fighter 3 or 4. Pretty much all of them go back to 5. So you are talking like old, like Xbox 360, PS3 era motion capture. And people are looking at it going, this is amazing, this is the best fighting I've ever seen in a game. But yeah, that sweep, that palm, Wolf Hawkfield, you'll be aware, is roughly based off of a couple of wrestlers that were playing in All Japan Pro days. But they have added some new wrestling moves. Will Ospreay's Stormbreaker is in this game now with Wolf, but Wolf has always done a lot of kind of old school pro wrestling stuff. He's big on his clotheslines, he likes a good suplex and things like that. Now he's a bit older, potentially a heel, is what we've been told in his promo that was released last year. Another interesting detail on this one though, which everyone's already spotted, and I'm sure you can see it as well, is we do have 16 little grey sections here. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. So there's going to be 16 characters to choose from. I could see some NPCs in there. I could definitely see some characters just making a little appearance. Again, a lay fate. If it's going to be about Kung Fu, we could potentially put a lot of those characters in. Right? It'd be interesting to move away from Dural. They keep saying it's gonna be different. Are they brave enough to make it no Dural different? Play with 3 buttons, punch, kick, and guard. It was a game that was easy to enjoy using simple controls. I've spoken to a few people about this. I do think they might make, like, at the very least, like a K plus G button and a throw button and a PKG button. ChadTheThird said a very similar thing. When Virtua Fighter people talk about it being a 3-button fighting game, to a modern fighting game fan, it might not come across as a 3-button fighter, because when you say hit GPK to a lot of people would just be a button, and they'll go, well, I'll just map something to that. And that is always the special button, right? Or the stance button. And then there's always G plus K, there's always G plus P, and there's always P plus K. So there's kind of these 4 variations that sit outside of the 3 buttons. So it's kind of a 7-button fighter in a way. And that might be something that they've thought about here is, let's think about pad players, let's think about using all of the face buttons and things. Sometimes I have a GPK button. In some of the games where it's a bit more useful for stancing. Yeah, I sometimes like that button as its own thing. And obviously early Fighters Mega Mix and things like that, when it was the sidestep button. Not a fan of the tooth out, yeah. The visible damage, like Mortal Kombat does this, Dead or Alive does this, like other games do this. Virtua Fighter is normally very innovative and do things that you haven't necessarily thought of, right? Like the uneven ground and the ring outs and things like that. It feels a bit simple to do something like this, I think. It's also, I don't know, a little bit, which kind of breaks the cleanness of a Virtua Fighter game where they know that it's a video game, right? Like we hear silly clangy noises when people are guarding and stuff like that, and that doesn't seem to be happening here, which is a bit of a shame. Love the big orange background KOs and things. We talked about that again. There's a lot of martial arts movie history to having a big orange background with a big wall of splashy text on it and things like that. Our initial thought was what would happen if we let realism guide us. This is the second time that they've said something along those lines of this should be a realistic game. So maybe they are just leaning further into realistic than Virtua Fighter typically does. Like realistic normally means realistic martial arts, realistic styles, realistic. It's Virtua, right? So good motion capture and good realistic feel, not necessarily blood and sweat and teeth.
が本当にこんなガードするのかみたいなパンチの質によってこういう風にできると思うし、まず
What real martial artist would block that way with his hands up? How do I introduce this? Boxing, right? Boxing is a great example. I'm going to use a very specific example. This is John Davis, and he's a relative of mine. This is him boxing, and he was known for an open, perpendicular peekaboo style. So not like a peekaboo style like Mike Tyson, where you sort of look through the gaps in your gloves there. But there, you see the gloves. They are fully face covered. All the rest of it. It does happen. It's not necessarily the most orthodox of styles, but you will see it in boxing quite a bit. You do have gloves there. It is different to that extent as well. For sure. You will see as well these days there is a lot of bare knuckle boxing. And that style is developing, and they tend to guard open-handed for that same reason if they don't have gloves anymore. And their hands aren't always fully bound up. So that throw, people specifically use this throw to say, look at how good this game is. And this is a Pai Chan throw since forever. That is a long-standing Pai throw. Yeah, here again, some big boots, and you see that gut strike. Do we see what happens before it? So he kind of hits him twice, but it seems to be part of the same set piece. So I don't think it is what some people have theorized of if you hit the same area 2 times in a row, you get additional damage. Because the first things there were actually blocked and then it went into the sort of hit throw, yeah. But it does feel like that might not necessarily be that you've got to hit the same area 2 times in a row. I think it might be if you work an area. I hope it's work an area. I think work an area would be such a cool feature. Again, you see the legs there. There it does get hit twice in a row. Again, classic pie setup. That's a real pie canned mix-up right now in Virtua Fighter 5. This ground and pound, it's not the exact same animation as Vanessa's ground and pound, but this is, again, taken so much from Vanessa's Valetudo style that I don't think we're going to see Vanessa. Again, we see Stella flying around there. Sarah-like. Again, that feels very Vanessa-y to do the low spear. I think she's not back. A mat return is the name for this in MMA terms, or in wrestling terms. So he does a mat return with a camera angle shift into a ground and pound into a knee. Obviously, again, very Vanessa. So he's ultimately the replacement Vanessa. This is, again, a clear statement that Vanessa's not coming back in this game. So Valetudo is a rule set. It's not a martial arts style. So Valetudo is bring what you've learned, which is called Valetudo, which means no holds barred, essentially. or just freestyle. There were certain things that people didn't do, like, and again, part of it was practicality, part of it was that there were still some kind of rules, but like punches to the face, as someone who's broken his knuckles many times, you don't always want to punch someone in the head, and you can break your hands quite easily doing that kind of thing. So a lot of early Valetudo, again, you think Bass Rutten and things like that, they loved doing a heel palm, right? And striking like that. So there were certain things that kind of came out of Valetudo and those sort of rule sets that became martial arts. But yeah, for the most part, Valetudo just means bring what you got. She's Krav Maga and Jeet Kune Do, and so that she's got a mixture of martial arts that you can break down a little bit. Obviously, I did that breakdown years ago with Sarah, which was quite similar. So Sarah Bryant designed DNA. But yeah, I talk about all of the different styles that Sarah uses, including Savat and things like that. Maybe this is just an early prototype, but yeah, I think seeing her moveset entirely placed on a character, and like I say, it is a unique combination of styles that she has that they've chose to give to him, to Cielo. I do think that implies Vanessa's not coming back, which kind of sucks because she's one of the coolest, most unique characters, I would say, in fighting games. People are going to disagree with that and give me 1,000 examples of other characters that fight and look and play like Vanessa, but I think personally that Vanessa's always been one of the coolest ones. Her ground and pound throws and things have always looked extremely aggressive coming from Vanessa. I think her body type and just the way that she kind of looks and sounds and things like that, she is very commandeering and menacing. It'll be interesting to see how that moveset fits onto someone like Cielo, you know. It feels a little cheap and lazy and disappointing to just see it splattered onto a new character and executed as a cool new thing to put into a trailer. Pie stuff is very much existing pie stuff. There it is. That's the Osprey. This bit is clearly very intentional in that they want you to look at the screens happening in the background. Everyone's very excited about this picture, which appears to be it looks a lot like Virtua Fighter 3 Kage, right, with the mask and the long hair and the sort of sideways glance and the kind of possibly wearing mascara or having quite dark eyes anyway. So a lot of people are going, this is Kage. Got some mocaps. Who we reckon in there? Could be many other styles. A knee's a knee, right? Yeah, that could be. But then this next bit, I think, there, that kick. Sort of turnaround heel kick that comes back really fast. Again, it feels quite karate-like. It could be a wolf super kick. It's causing that knockdown. Maybe it is wolf. And there, that is I've talked about this before. So there's Stella doing a somersault kick, which is explicitly a Jeet Kune Do technique. It was kind of invented by Bruce Lee, although never done by Bruce Lee because of his back injury. So it's the only move where he would get a stuntman in. But yeah, if you ever post this picture, someone will say that's Yenhua, not Bruce Lee, because that's true. But yeah, that was definitely a Jeet Kune Do move. So again, we are seeing Stella doing Jeet Kune Do stuff. This is the revolution of Virtua Fighter. Weird to say it when we're playing Revel. Isn't a remake or a nostalgia grab, it's a completely reborn Virtua Fighter. The quotes that he says here, again, I think are trying to gently let down the existing Virtua Fighter crowd and let them know you're not just getting another version of what you've already been playing. People who've never played the series before, existing fans, and people who only play single player games too. That is such a bold statement, and I do get skeptical when I see people make statements like that. But we'll have to wait and see, won't we? Again, it's going to be a new experience. I think it's going to be Rent a Hero, but in a good way. Or Shenmue in a good way. I think my conclusion at the moment is, like I say, I expect this to be Rent a Hero style. I think it's going to be that RPG into a fighting game every time there's a fight scene kind of vibe. They're saying not like anything that's ever happened before. I do think it's slightly happened before, but yeah. I've got faith. I think it's looking good. I think there's a lot of the existing Virtua Fighter stuff in there, so it's interesting that they're saying it's not going to be anything like it. To me, that means it might be changing the control system and enough of the mechanics significantly that it's got to be played differently. Worth pointing out, none of that played like the Akira mirror match. And I called that out at the time and I said that is motion capped fighting. That is like a movie motion capped fight between two people. It's definitely a lot that's came out, and I think some of this has came out a little quicker than it was supposed to for obvious reasons. Yeah, I do think we're going to get a little bit of quiet now. I think they're not going to share anything for a little while. But if they do have 16 characters, there is potentially, someone said it earlier on, there's potentially one a month between now and 2027's release date, right? If it's October. But no, I think I need to give my voice a rest. We'll see you very, very soon. I'll raid Juicebox. If you do want more from Virtua Fighter, Juicebox is the guy. He is indeed playing Virtua Fighter 5. If you've got any questions about Virtua Fighter 5 and you've been interested in what we've shown today, he is absolutely the person to ask. He is extremely talented at not only playing Virtua Fighter 5, but teaching the concepts of Virtua Fighter 5 as well. I think RGG have been doing a good job so far. I think they'll continue to do a good job. And I've got faith in it.